the number of legislation that we have currently, it's a lot that we have to revise. And capacity, it's our human resource, it's just already depleted. So we have already started the process with Commonwealth, and we intend to work with CTU as well to see how we can get some assistance or some sort of collaborative process that we can get this process going.
Don't forget to talk to Cleveland as well.
And ITU, okay, thank you. We'll talk to ITU as well. Yes, because I remember in the whole concept with HIPCA, ITU was the one who was managing that whole process. Yes, and I remember you were there. I remember you were there, Sophie. So it's like we have these international bodies that we are looking to so that we can get assistance from you.
And just to add to that, before giving to the other judges, don't forget the whole EU push post-COVID, the Team Europe approach. You have the the LAC summit coming up. Don't forget what I said in my presentation yesterday. Make sure you go and talk to the EU delegations so that this is seen as a priority, that it's integrated into the LAC summit. It's really important that it comes bottom up from the countries. So please do go and talk to them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you had some really good slides there. There was some very, very good teamwork. And I'm sure we all got some ideas. So I think quick tip, anything that we raise, don't change your presentations, please.
Okay.
Because, you know, it's kind of like this is the guinea pig, and we don't want, you know, unfavorable conditions happening downstream of the industry. All right, so first thing, SVG. I like that you tried to address some of the concerns by putting a bullet points that said international trade agreements, but you didn't tell me what. All right?
Okay.
Now, I want to know, what do you see as a group as the important trade agreements that we are party to as a CARICOM, or if you have bilats as SVG that will enhance the company that you're representing, which is the fintech company, yeah? Did you find, what's the correct name? I'm such a very bad executive member. I don't know the name of my own company. Did you find? All right, so that's my first question. You want me to give you all, or you want to give?
No, let's take one at a time.
Let's handle this heavy one first.
Yeah, let's handle this heavy one, which I'm going to ask a team member to help me with.
Everybody
here, because I think we talked about it.
Anybody could talk, because I think Vashti has mics around.
Thank you again. I'll just mention three very quickly. There's the EPA, the Economic Partnership Agreement with Europe. Of course, there's CARICOM agreements, and more on a bilateral basis. It depends on who you have diplomatic relations with. In our case, Taiwan is a big partner for us in Vincent and the Grenadines, so we have a number of trading agreements with Taiwan. There are others, of course, but those are three of the most significant ones.
Thank you. And the second thing I wanted to ask, you had some slides up there on the legal and regulatory environment that you were looking at, and just in particular from the side of trade facilitation, what provisions you'll envisage trying to prepare for consumer concerns and competition in the market for the company, and also for the country? What exactly do you envisage as being necessary there? And have you anything in place at this time, the legal framework at this time, to address competitive concerns and consumer redress in SVG?
I'll start and then you'll complete. We currently have the consumer, and I think I mentioned it there, the Consumer Protection Act, which would help to protect our consumers. But in terms of the whole competition policy, we have not really reached the level that we want to. And I think that is one of the reasons we were having the conversation with you yesterday, to see and establish what mechanism we can put in place to deal with competition back in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, especially when it comes to whether it's the ISPs, which is the service providers and so forth. What can we put in place to protect basically your citizens from being abused by these entities? Mr. Knights from the NTRC would add some more to this.
Yes, good morning. I'd just like to add to Simone. Yes, for the competition area, As you mentioned, we just passed our Electronic Communications Act in October. So it should be proclaimed soon, in effect in a few months. But that has a number of provisions dealing with competitive issues, but just for the telecom ICT sector. So at least that's a good start, but we don't have an overall broad-based competition bill act as yet. But that's something we plan to work with your institution. Hopefully we can help in that other area going forward.
Okay, we're having a lot of cross-fertilization in the exercise with, so I think we need to just cancel the, the VP thing and just go with who we are. I want to ask you one last quick question. Bearing in mind that you are part of the OECS region and you are one of the only regions, one of probably about the top 3 regions who have a successful central bank, a CDC, a central bank issued currency, Dcash. I want to know from that perspective, what do you see as being critical in your legislative framework to not just help you with bank issued money, that's digital money, but also with all of the things that are happening in the fintech world right now with cyber money and cryptocurrency, which is a little bit different from the cyber money. So that's an important one for any company engaging in global trade now.
Well, we have already started with the whole legislation about the electronic funds transfer. And of course, that will cover the Dcash stuff because you're moving monies from one wallet to the other, etc. So that would also cover that. It's a little bit unfortunate that the Dcash has not really propel in the way that we anticipated in the OECS, but we are still looking at ways in which that whole aspect of but it's mobile money moving money from one wallet to the other, Dcash, or another one may come up soon, who knows. But we still have some foundation on which we can use those. In terms of cryptocurrency and so forth, we do right now. We do not really have any proper, I should say, legislation in place to really cover that. Unfortunately, I would say here, and I hope that Commonwealth and even with your entity, TCC, and also CTU, where we can get some assistance here, because currently I'm just going to make a pitch here that we have a case where in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we are promoting the young people to use e-commerce to do their trade and so forth, online transaction. But we do not have a way where we can actually collect the monies, the funds. And one of the things we were looking at recently is how we can get our SMEs to conduct their businesses online by collecting funds, for example, via PayPal. And we cannot at this point do that. And it is a hindrance to our development in that fintech industry, because you have these great developments, but how can you go past this obstacle that you have? So this is something that we really have to look into. So if you have any areas that you can help us with in that, we would welcome it. And our Honorable AG would add some more to that.
Thank you again. I'd just like to add 3 points to what Simone said in relation to your question. The first is, of course, having a carve out a space for developers, so a sandbox type provision where we could let people fiddle around and test these products without impacting the main system. The Dcash is a sort of central bank digital currency that has been issued by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and that has to be treated differently. But in that regard, one of the things that's very important is a system for ensuring the transactions, so that if there is some sort of fraud or something, the person who's using that central bank digital currency knows they are protected just as much as if you're using fiat currency. So that insurance, deposit insurance, or whatever phrase it's called, is very important to give confidence and trust to the persons in the market. We, of course, also passed the virtual assets service providers legislation, which is very critical. But one of the things is that this area is still very much emerging, even in jurisdictions like the United States. There's a lot of debate as to, is it a security? Is it a commodity? All of those things. So I think we also need some degree of certainty on a global level in order to be able to effectively and properly regulate these types of transactions and these types of assets.
Just one question and just one comment. First of all, fantastic presentation. I thought, I've got a list of things I was looking for. You were ticking them all off as you were going through the slides. I think they're really, really good and really interesting looking at your legislative kind of existing framework. I thought that's a really good approach. I really like the fact that you include your trade agreements. That gets missed off by a lot of governments. It's seen as domestic legislation, and that outward-facing approach is so important for business. I'm coming from obviously a business perspective. So my question is, you mentioned harmonization. In industry, in the trade environment, we're talking interoperability. And there's quite an important differentiation between harmonization and interoperability. Is there any reason why you are talking in the language of harmonization and didn't mention interoperability?
I don't know if there's a specific reason why it wasn't mentioned. I think we were really focusing on how we can all do this together without having varied legislation that would set us aside or set us apart from doing business together. So it was more or less how we can actually do this together, because as well, sometimes it might be a case where we might not have to approach an international trade that we want to do with just by St. Vincent by itself, because the islands, they are small, the population is small, so we might have to work together with another member states in order to facilitate certain types of trade. So it was a matter of how we can work together to do all this international trade.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I actually think interoperability fits better in an island region environment. That interaction across the economies. My only comment, my one comment was around standards. It's great that you're talking international standards. I think that's absolutely vital from an international business perspective. But please do think beyond ISO. ISO is only one of many different standards that everybody has to adopt. It's actually all about the standards toolkit from the WTO, ICC, and ISO is in that toolkit, but that sets out the framework for government and industry. So if you can think, when you're going into your stakeholder engagement, encouraging everybody, it's a powerful message that we're all adopting, one framework that fits, of course, your harmonization, interoperability objective as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vashti, how are we doing on time? Is it? Right, okay. Great, thank you. Then we will wrap up on that note and thank the St. Vincent and Grenadines for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.